Ready to discover the top 3 ultra-rare coins that could be hiding in your collection? These Washington quarters, Jefferson nickels, and wheat pennies are worth hundreds of thousands, even millions. Stick around to the end of the video, because the shocking value of these coins will blow your mind. History of the 1965 Washington quarter. Let's take a step back and explore the 1965 Washington quarter. The Washington quarter, featuring the portrait of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, has been a staple of U.S. coinage for nearly a century. By 1965, these coins had already undergone decades of circulation, and the design was well known to American citizens. In 1965, the U.S. Mint found itself at a crossroads. Due to a nationwide shortage of silver, the government decided to reduce the silver content in coins. This marked the last year the Washington quarter was struck with 90% silver. Starting in 1965, quarters were made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, a huge change for a coin that had been made primarily from silver for over 100 years. So, what made the 1965 Washington quarter so special? The 1965 Washington quarter itself is a rather common coin. But here's where things get interesting. There's a rare era version that is incredibly valuable to collectors, and this is the one that could change your life. The rare 1965 Washington quarter era. Before I dive into the value of this rare coin, let's talk about why the 1965 Washington quarter is so important. While most of these quarters were struck with the new copper-nickel-clad metal, a handful of them were accidentally struck using silver planchets meant for dimes. These coins, the 1965 silver Washington quarter, are what numismatists are going crazy for today. The reason these silver quarters are so valuable is because they're extremely rare. They were never intended to exist, making them an error coin that's incredibly sought after. Imagine holding a coin that was supposed to be a regular, non-silver quarter but ended up being made of silver. That's a mistake that collectors are willing to pay big money for. Value of the 1965 silver Washington quarter. You're probably wondering, how much is this rare 1965 silver Washington quarter worth? Well, the price tag can range dramatically depending on the coin's condition and certification. A regular, non-silver 1965 Washington quarter isn't worth much, typically just 25 cents. However, the 1965 silver quarter can fetch thousands of dollars depending on its grade. At the low end, a 1965 silver quarter can be worth around $1,000 to $2,000, but if you're lucky enough to find one in pristine condition, it can soar to $50,000 or even more. The best condition examples, graded by professional coin grading services like PCGS or NGC, could push the value even higher, with some coins reaching up to $100,000 or more. It's the rarity of these silver era quarters that makes them so valuable. The number of 1,965 silver quarters that were struck is minuscule compared to the millions of regular clad quarters produced. That small mistake has created a collector's dream for anyone lucky enough to find one. History of the 1965 Jefferson nickel. In 1965, the U.S. Mint produced millions of Jefferson nickels, which were the same design as those made for decades. The coin features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his home, Monticello, on the reverse. But don't let the familiar design fool you. While most 1965 Jefferson nickels are quite common, there is a rare variety that has become the stuff of legend in the numismatic world. This unique coin, believed to have been produced due to a mistake at the mint, holds a secret that only the most eagle-eyed collectors can uncover. Why the 1965 silver nickel is so valuable. Silver has been a prized metal for centuries, and its scarcity and demand make silver coins highly valuable in the world of numismatics. The 1965 silver nickel is incredibly rare and highly sought after by collectors, as there were only a few produced by mistake. The mint typically used a mix of copper and nickel for most coins in the mid-1960s, but some of the 1965 nickels were mistakenly struck on silver planchets meant for other coins, such as the dime. The rarity of the 1965 silver nickel makes it one of the most valuable coins in the U.S. Mint's history. While most 1965 Jefferson nickels are worth only a few cents, the silver variety can be worth anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 or more, depending on its condition. Some specimens in mint condition have sold for as much as $100,000, and the most prized examples could fetch even more, with some estimates pushing the value up to $200,000 or higher. Collectors are especially interested in coins with a high grade, which means they are in near-perfect or uncirculated condition. Coins with little wear or signs of handling can fetch higher prices, especially if they come with certification from respected grading agencies like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC. How to identify the 1965 silver nickel? Now, you might be wondering, how can I tell if I have one of these rare silver nickels? Great question. Identifying a 1965 silver nickel can be tricky because the coin looks almost identical to a regular 1965 nickel. However, the key difference is in the weight and sound of the coin. A typical 1965 nickel weighs 5 grams and sounds relatively dull when dropped. In contrast, a silver nickel will weigh around 5.2 grams and produce a sharper, more metallic sound. If you believe you have a silver 1965 nickel, the best course of action is to take it to a professional coin dealer or appraiser for further examination and certification. This could be your ticket to a serious windfall. The 1941 wheat penny, a quick overview. The 1941 wheat penny, officially known as the Lincoln cent, is a familiar and classic coin in American history. Produced by the U.S. Mint, it features Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, and the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse, which is where this coin gets its name from. But while most of these pennies are relatively common, there's a rare version of the 1941 penny that has become a coveted treasure among collectors, and it could be worth far more than you think. The rarest 1941 wheat penny, the 1941 S. The 1941 wheat penny comes in various mint marks, but the one that collectors and numismatists are absolutely obsessed with is the 1941 S. This particular penny was minted in San Francisco, and the reason it's so rare comes down to one simple fact: a low mintage. In comparison to its regular counterparts, far fewer 1941 S pennies were struck, making it a highly sought-after coin for collectors. Even though it was minted over 80 years ago, the 1941 S wheat penny can be worth an astonishing amount of money, depending on its condition. In mint state condition, like uncirculated and looking fresh out of the mint, this penny can fetch prices upwards of $50,000 or even more at auctions. Yes, you read that right. That tiny little coin, barely the size of a fingernail, could turn into a small fortune. Why is the 1941 S so valuable? There are a few key reasons why the 1941 S wheat penny commands such insane prices. Low mintage numbers. Minted in relatively small quantities, the 1941 S didn't roll off the presses like other pennies, making it harder to find in the wild today. Condition matters. The condition of the coin is a major factor. Coins that are well preserved, especially those in MS-66 or better grades, can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. That means those with little wear or blemishes are worth far more than others. A piece of history. In the world of numismatics, scarcity and history are key. The 1941 S coin was minted during a time of war, World War II, which only adds to its historical significance. Some collectors are willing to pay top dollar for any coin from this period, especially one that was in such limited supply. Other rare 1941 wheat pennies. While the 1941 S is the real star of the show, there are other 1941 pennies worth keeping an eye on. The 1941 D, minted in Denver, and the regular 1941 are also considered rare in certain conditions. In particular, any 1941 penny that has a D mint mark or is in near-perfect condition can be worth upwards of a couple $100. The auction circuit, where these pennies sell for big bucks. Where do these pennies go when they're sold for such crazy amounts? Auctions, of course. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have sold 1941's wheat pennies for $100,000 plus. These auctions can get competitive, as coin collectors from around the world fight to claim these rare pieces of history for their collections. How to tell if you have a valuable 1941 wheat penny? Now, you might be wondering, how can I tell if my 1941 penny is worth a small fortune? Here's a quick checklist to help you out. Look for the mint mark. Check if your penny has a S or D mint mark. The S mint mark is where the real value lies. Check the condition, look for any wear or damage. A coin in better condition will always be worth more. Examine the color. A well-preserved, reddish-brown penny can fetch more than a dull, tarnished one.